After reading Psalms 39, 40, etc. by Thomas Hardy, read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone in Oxford, England. Simple was I, and was young, kept no gallant tryst I, even from good words held my tongue, quoniam tu fecisti. Through my youth I stirred me not, high adventure missed I, left the shining shrines unsought, yet me deduist I. At my start by Helicon, love-lore little wist I, worldly less but footed on, why, me suscepist I. When I failed at fervid rhymes, shall I said persist I? Dies, I would add at times, meos posuist I. So I have fared through many suns. Sadly little grist I bring my mill or anyone's. Domine tu scisti. And at dead of night I call, though to prophets list I, which hath understood at all, yea, quem elegist I. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. Read for LibriVox.org by Algie Pug. Annabel Lee. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child, in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that, long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsmen came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in the sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in the sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Autumn Leaves by Angelina Ray. Recorded for LibriVox.org by J.C. Woods. In the hush, in the lonely silence of the chill October night, some wizard has worked his magic with fairy fingers light. The leaves of the sturdy oak trees are splendid with crimson and red, and the golden flags of the maples are fluttering overhead. Through the tangle of faded grasses there are trailing vines ablaze, and the glory of warmth and color gleams through the autumn haze, like banners of marching armies that farther and farther go. Down the winding roads in the valleys, the bows of the sumacs glow. So open your eyes, little children, and open your hearts as well, till the charm of the bright October shall fold you in its spell. End of poem. This is a LibriVox recording in the public domain.
Chicago by Carl Sandburg. Read for LibriVox.org by Capricia Page. Hog butcher for the world, toolmaker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and the nation's freight handler. Stormy, husky, brawling city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them. For I have seen your painted women under the gas lamps luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked, and I answer, yes, it is true. I have seen the gunman kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal, and my reply is, on the faces of women and children, I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered so, I turn once more to those who sneer at this my city. And I give them back the sneer and say to them, come and show me another city, with lifted head singing so proud to be alive, and coarse and strong and cunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is the tall, bold slugger, set vivid against the little soft cities. Fierce as a dog with tongue lapping for action, cunning as a savage pitted against the wilderness, bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding, under the smoke, dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth, under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs, laughing, even as an ignorant fighter laughs who has never lost a battle, bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs the heart of the people, laughing, laughing the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half naked, sweating, proud to be hog butcher, toolmaker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and freight handler to the nation. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Fair is my love, and cruel as she's fair, by Samuel Daniel. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Fair is my love, and cruel as she's fair. Her brow shades frowns, although her eyes are sunny. Her smiles are lightening, though her pride despair. And her disdains are gall, her favors honey. A modest maid, decked with a blush of honor, whose feet do tread green paths of youth and love. The wonder of all eyes that look upon her, sacred on earth, designed a saint above. Chastity and beauty, which were deadly foes, live reconciled friends within her brow. And had she pity to conjoin with those, then who had heard the plaints I utter now? Oh, had she not been fair and thus unkind, my muse had slept, and none had known my mind. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Fire Soul by George Charles Selden. Read by The Bookworm for LibriVox.org. I sat by my fire in the night, in the night. The darkness grew deeper around me. The last faint gleams of the flickering light faded out of my sight into night, and the spell of reverie bound me. When sudden I saw in the vanishing light a phantom hovering o'er me. It wavered an instant in its flight, then faded from sight into night, and left but the darkness before me. And yet, so swift and sudden its flight, so deep the shadows before me, I knew not whether a beckoning sprite had glimmered white in the night, are only a thought sped o'er me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
In the New Forest by Anne Radcliffe. Read for LibriVox.org by Grant Herlock. Wanderer, if thy path bend o'er these lawns and forest lands, stay thy rejoicing steps, though they would fain bound with yon fawns and hinds down the green slope and skim the level turf to other slopes and other pluming groves. Stay thy intemperate spirit, and mark well each beauty of the scene, and the strong lights and stormy sunshine that fall o'er these shades. Pause thou a while, that in some future hour, when the long sunless storm of winter broods, and thou sit'st lonely by thy evening hearth, in melancholy twilight, listening the far-off tempest, then sweet memory may come, and with her mirror cheer thy mind, on whose bright surface lovelier scenes shall live than any shrined within Italian climes, and every graceful form and shaded hue, as now it lives, again shall smile before thee. For England, beauteous England, scarce can boast through her green vales and plains and wavy hills another landscape of such sylvan grace. 'Twas surely here that Shakespeare dreamt of fays, and in these shades Titania held her court, and bade her tiny bands in starlight revel. Those tufts of oak that crown the swelling lawn, those were her shady halls at high moontide, and yon light ash her summer night pavilion, lighted by dewdrops and the flickering blaze that glances from the high electric north. Where'er the groves retire and meadows rise, there were her carpets spread, of various tints, from turf and amorous lichen, all combined with soft flowers and transparent azure bells, on whose pure skin their purple veins appear. And over all these hues a veil is thrown of silvery dew, oft lighted by the moon. Temper thy joyous spirit, wanderer, and 'gainst the wintry hour, when thorns alone hold forth their berries, cull sweet summer buds. Then shall the deep gloom vanish, the storm sink, the balmy air of woods shall soothe thy sense, and their broad leaves thy landscape canopy, e'en in December's melancholy day. And now bound with those fawns down the green slope, skim the smooth turf to other hills and groves, in the full joy of sunshine and new hopes. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Lost Mistress by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Capricia Page. All's over then. Does truth sound bitter as one at first believes? Hark, 'tis the sparrow's good-night twitter about your cottage eaves. And the leaf buds on the vine are woolly. I noticed that today. One day more bursts them open fully. You know the red turns gray. Tomorrow we meet the same then, dearest. May I take your hand in mine? Mere friends are we. Well, friends the merest keep much that I resign. For each glance of the eye so bright and black, though I keep with heart's endeavor your voice when you wish the snowdrops back, though it stay in my soul forever. Yet I will but say what mere friends say, or only a thought stronger. I will hold your hand but as long as all may, or so very little longer. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Music by Stephen Vincent Bennett, read for LibriVox.org. My friend went to the piano, spun the stool a little higher, left his pipe to cool, picked up a fat green volume from the chest, and propped it open. Whitely without rest, his fingers swept the keys that flashed like swords into the brute drums of barbarian hordes. Roaring and thunderous and weapon bare, an army stormed the bastions of the air. Dreadful with banners, fires to slay and parch, marching together as the lightnings march, and swift as storm clouds. Brazen helms and cars, clanging to a fierce resurgence of old wars above the screaming horns. In the state they passed, trampling in splendid on and sought the vast. Rending the darkness like a leaping knife, the flame, the noble pageant of our life. The burning seal that stamps a man's high indenture to vain attempt and most forlorn adventure. Romance in purple seas and toppling towns, and the wind's valiance crying ere the downs. That nerves the silly hand, the feeble brain, from the loose net of words to deeds again. And to all courage. Perilous and sharp, the last chord shook me as the wind shakes a harp, and my friend swung round on his stool, and from gods we were men. How pretty, we said, and went on with our talk again. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Old Spooks' Pass by Isabella Crawford. Read for LibriVox.org by Grant Herlock. Old Spooks' Pass. We'd camped that night on Yaller Bowl Flat. There was Possum Billy and Tom and me, right smart at throwin' a lariat, was them two fellers as ever I see. And for ridin' a bronco, or argyin' squar, with the devil rolled up in the hide of a mule, them two fellers that camped with me thar would have made an ornery feller a fool. For argufyin' in any way that had to be argued with sinew and bone, I never seed fellers could argy like them. But just right here I will hev to own that whar brains come in the game of life, they held the poorest keards in the lot, and when hands was shown, some other chap raked in the hull of the blamed old pot. We was short of hands, the herd was large, and watch we divided the night. We could hear the coyotes howl and whine, but the darn critters kept out of sight of the campfire blazin', and now and then thar came a rustle and sort of brush, a rattle a sneakin' away from the blaze, through the rattlin', cracklin' gray sage bush. We'd chanced that night on a pootyish lot, with a tol'ble show of tall sweet grass. We was takin' Sporados drove across the Rockies by way of Old Spooks' Pass, and a mite of a creek went crinklin' down, like a pocket bust in the rocks overhead, consid'able shrunk by the summer drought, to a silver streak in its gravelly bed. 'Twas a fairish spot fur to camp a night, and chipper I felt, though sorta scared, that them two cowboys with only me couldn't boss 3,000 head of a herd. I took the fust of the watch myself, and as the red sun down the mountains sprang, I rolled a fresh quid and got on the back of my peart little chunk of a tough mustang, and Possum Billy was sleepin' sound, as only a cowboy knows how to sleep, and Tommy's snores would have made a old buffalo bull feel kinda cheap. Wal, pard, I reckon thar's no such time for dwindlin' a chap in his own conceit, as when them mountains and awful stars just hark to the tramp of his mustang's feet. It 'pears to me that them solemn hills beckon them stars so big and calm, and whisper, "Make tracks this way, my friends. We've ringed in here a specimen man. He's here alone, so we'll take a look through his Gansean vest and his blood and bone, and post ourselves as to whether his heart is flesh or a rotten, made-up stone." And it's often seemed on a midnight watch, when the mountains blackened the dry brown sod, that a chap if he shut his eyes might grip the kind great hand of his Father God. I rode round the herd at a sort of walk, the shadders come stealin' thick and black. I'd just got to leave to that there chunk of a mustang to keep in the proper track. Ever seed a herd ringed in at night? Well, it's sort of cur'us, the watchin' sky, the howl of coyotes, a great black mass, with thar and thar the gleam of a eye, and the white of a horn, and now and then an old bull liftin' his shaggy head, with a beller like a broke-up thunder growl, and the summer lightnin' quick and red, twistin' and turnin' amid the stars, silent as snakes at play in the grass, and plungin' their fangs in the bare old skulls of the mountains frownin' above the pass. And all so still that the leetle creek, twinklin' and crinklin' from stone to stone, grows louder and louder and fills the air with a cur'us sort of a singin' tone. It ain't no matter wharever you be, I allow it's a cur'us sort of case. Whar thar's runnin' water, it's sure to speak of folks to home and the old home place. And you're bound to listen and hear it talk, as your mustang crunches the dry bald sod, for I reckon the hills and stars and creek are all of 'em preachers sent by God. And them mountains talk to a chap this way: "Climb if you can, you degenerate cuss," and the stars smile down on a man and say, "Come higher, poor critter, come up to us." And I reckon, pard, thar is one above, the highest old star that a chap can see, and he says in a solid, etarnal way, "Ye never can stop till ye get to me." Good for him, too, for I calculate he ain't the one to dodge and to shirk, or waste a mite of the things he's made, or knock off till he's finished his great day's work. We've got to labor and strain and snort along that road that he's planned and made. Don't matter a mite he's cut his line to run over a tarnal, tough upgrade. And if some poor sinner ain't built to hold as big a head of steam as the next, and keeps slippin' and slidin' way downhill, why he don't make out that he's awful vexed, for he knows he made him in that thar way, somewhars to fit in his own great plan, and he ain't the bein' to pour his wrath on the head of that slimpsy and slippery man. And he says to the feller, "Look here, my son, you're the worst hard case that ever I see, but be that it takes ye 1,000,000 yars, ye never can stop till ye get to me." Them's my idees as I panned them out. Don't take no stock in them creeds that say thar's a chap with horns that's took control of the rollin' stock on that upgrade way, that's free to tote up as ugly a log as grows in his big bush grim and black, and slyly put it across the rails to hist a poor critter clar off the track. And when he's pooty well busted and smashed, the devil comes smilin' and bowin' round, says to the maker, "Guess you don't keer to trouble with stock that ain't parfectly sound. Lemme tote him away, best ye can do. Neglected, I guess, to build him with care. I'll hide him in hell, better that folks shouldn't see him laid up on the track for repair." Don't take no stock in them creeds at all. Ain't one of them cur'us sort of moles that think the Maker is bound to let the devil get up a corner in souls. Ye think I've put up a biggish stake? Wal, I'll bet for all I'm wuth, d'ye see, he ain't wuth shucks that won't dar to lay all his pile on his own idee. Ye bet your boots I am safe to win, as the chap that's able to smile and smack the ace he's been hidin' up his sleeve, kerslap on top of a feller's jack. As I was sayin', the night was dark, the lightnin' skippin' from star to star. There wa'n't no clouds but a thread of mist, no sound but the coyotes' yell afar, and the noise of the creek as it called to me. Pard, don't ye mind the mossy green spot, where a creek stood still for a drowsin' spell, right in the midst of the old home lot, where right at sundown on Sabbath day, ye skinned yourself of your meetin' clothes, and dove like a duck o'er the water clar, shone up like glass through the lily blows. Your soul was white as your skin them days, your eyes as clar as the creek at rest. The wust idea in your head that time was robbin' a bluebird's swingin' nest. Now ain't ye changed, declar for it, Pard, that creek would question it 'pears to me, if ye looked in its waters again tonight. Who may this old cuss of a sinner be? That was the style that thar creek in old Spookses Pass in the Rockies talked. Drowsily listenin' I rode round the herd, when all of a sudden the mustang balked, and shied with a snort. I never know'd that tough leetle critter to show a scare, in storm or dark, but he jest scrouched down, with his nostrils snuffin' the damp, cool air, an' his flanks a quiver, shook up. Well, yes, guessed we'd have heaps of tarnation fun. I calculated quicker'n light that the herd would be off on a healthy run. But there warn't a stir to horn or hoof. The herd like a great black mist lay spread, where har and thar a grazin' bull loomed up like a mighty thunderhead. I riz in my saddle and starred around. On the mustang's neck I felt the sweat. There was nothin' to see. Sort of felt the har commencin' to crawl on my scalp, ye bet. Felt kind of cur'us. Own up I did. Felt sort of dry in my mouth and throat. Says I, ye ain't goin' to scare old hoss at a prowlin' cuss of a blamed coyote. But 'twa'n't no coyote nor prowlin' beast, nor rattle a wrigglin' through the grass, nor a lurkin' redskin. 'Twa'n't my way, in a game like that, to sing out I pass. But I know'd when I glimpsed the rollin' whites, the sparks from the black of the mustang's eye, there was somethin' waltzin' up that way that would send them critters off on the fly. In the night air's tremblin', shakin' hands felt it beatin' kerslap onto me, like them waves that chased that President chap that went on the war trail in old Judee. The air was bustin', but silent as death, and lookin' up, in a second I seed the sort of sky that allers looks down on the rush and the roar of a night stampede. Tearin' along the indigo sky was a drove of clouds snarled and black, scuddin' along towards the risin' moon like the sweep of a darned hungry pack of prairie wolves towards a buffler. The heft of the herd left out of sight. I drored my breath right hard, for I know'd we was in for a tarnal run that night. Quiet, ye bet. The mustang scrounched, his neck stretched out and his nostrils wide. The moonshine swept a white river down the black of the mighty mountain's side, lappin' over and over the stuns and brush in whirls and swirls of leapin' light, makin' straight for the herd, whar black and still it stretched away to the left and right. On the level lot, I tell ye, pard, I know'd when it touched the first black hide, me and the mustang would have a show, for a breezy bit of an evenin' ride. One, it flowed over a homely pine, that riz from a cranny, lean and lank, a cleft of the mountain, reckonin' two, it slapped onto an old steer's heavin' flank, as sound he slept on the skirt of the herd, dreamin' his dreams of the sweet blue grass, on the plains below, and afore it touched the other wall of old Spookses Pass, the herd was up, not one at a time. That ain't the style in a midnight run. They was up and off like as all thar minds was rolled in the hide of only one. I fit in a battle and heerd the guns blasphemin' God with their devil's yell, heerd the stuns of a fort like thunder crash in front of the scream of a red-hot shell. But that thar poundin' of iron hoofs, the clatter of horns, the peltin' sweep of 3,000 head of a runnin' herd, made all of them noises kind of cheap. The pass just opened its giant throat, and its lips of granite, and let a roar of answerin' echoes. The mustang bucked, then answered the bridle, and pard, afore the twink of a firebug, lifted his legs over stuns and brush like a lopin' deer. A smart leetle critter, and thar was I, 'longside of the plungin', leadin' steer. A low-set critter, not much account for heft or looks, but one of them sort that can fetch a herd at his darned heels with a toss of his horns or a mite of a snort, for a fight or a run. And thar was I, pressin' clus to the steel of his heavin' flank, and cussin' and shoutin', while overhead the moon in the black clouds tremblin' sank, like a buffler overtook by the wolves, and pulled to the ground by the scuddin' pack. The herd rushed on with a din and crash, dim as a shadder, vast and black. Couldn't tell if a hide was black or white, but from the dim surges a roarin' by, bust long red flashes, the flamin' light from some old steer's furious and scareful eye, that passin' the Rockies fairly roared, and sudden as winkin' came the bang and rattle of thunder to see the grit of that peart little chunk of a tough mustang. Not a buck nor a shy, he gev a snort that shook the foam on his steamin' hide, and leaped along. Wal, pard, ye bet, I'd a healthy show fur a lively ride. And them cowboys slept in the leetle camp, calm as 3 kids in a truckle bed. Declar the crash was enough to put life in the dust of the sleepin' dead. The thunder kept droppin' its awful shells, one at a minute, on mountain and rock. The pass with its stone lips thundered back, and the rush and roar and whirlin' shock of the runnin' herd was fit to bust a tenderfoot's heart had he chanced along. But I just let out of my lungs and throat a rippin' old verse of a herdsman's song, and sidled the mustang closer up, 'longside of the leader, and hit him flat on his steamin' flank with a lightsome stroke of the end of my limber lariat. He never swerved, and we thundered on, black in the blackness, red in the red of the lightnin' blazin' with every clap that bust from the black guns overhead. The mustang was shod, and the lightnin' bit at his iron shoes each step he run. Then plunged in the yearth we rode in flame, for the flashes rolled into only one, same as the bellers made one big roar. Yet through the whirl of din and flame, I sung and shouted and called the steer. I sidled agin by his own front name, and struck his side with my fist and foot. 'Twas just like hittin' a Russian stone, and he thundered ahead. I couldn't boss the critter a mossel, I'm free to own. The sweat come a-pourin' down my beard. Ef ye wonder wharfor, jest ye spread yourself fur a ride with a runnin' herd, a yawnin' gulch half a mile ahead. 300 foot from its grinnin' lips to the roarin' stream on its stones below. Once more I hurled the mustang up, agin the side of the cuss called Joe. 'Twa'n't a mite of use, he riz his heels up in the air like a scuddin' colt. The herd massed closer and hurled down the roarin' pass like a thunderbolt. I couldn't rein off, seemed swept along in the rush and roar and thunderin' crash. The lightnin' struck at the runnin' herd with a crack like the stroke of a cowboy's lash. Thar, I could see it, I tell ye, pard, things seemed whittled down sort of fine. We wasn't 500 feet from the gulch, with its mean little fringe of scrubby pine. What could stop us? I grit my teeth, think I prayed, ain't sartin of thet, when whizzin' and singin' thar came the rush, right past my face of a lariat. "Bully for you, old pard," I roared, as it whizzed round the leader's steamin' chest, and I wheeled the mustang for all he was wuth. Kerslap on the side of the old steer's breast. He gev a snort, and I see him swerve. I follered his shoulder, clussin' tight. Another swerve, and the herd begun to swing around. Shouts I, "All right! You've fetched 'em now." The mustang gave a small leetle whinny. I felt him flinch. Says I, "Ye ain't goin' to weaken now, old feller, and me in this darned pinch?" "No," says he, with his small prickin' ears, plain as a human could speak, and me, I turned my head to glimpse, ef I could, who might the chap with the lariat be. Wal, pard, I weakened, ye bet yer life. Thar wasn't a human in sight around, but right in front of me come the beat of a hoss's hoofs on the tremblin' ground. Steady and heavy, a slingin' lope, a hefty critter with biggish bones, might make just sich, could hear the hoofs as they struck on the rattlin', rollin' stones, the jingle of bit, and clar and shrill, a whistle as ever left cowboy's lip, and cut in the air the long, fine hiss of the whirlin' lash of a cowboy's whip. I crowded the mustang back until he riz on his haunches, and I said, "In the Maker's name, who may ye be?" Says a vice, "Old feller, jest ride ahead." "All right," says I, and I shook the rein. "You've turned the herd in a handsome style. Whoever ye be, I'll not back down." And I didn't neither, ye bet yer pile. Clus on the heels of that unseen hoss, I rode on the side of the turnin' herd, and once in a while I answered back a shout or a whistle or cheerin' word from lips no lightnin' was strong to show. 'Twas sort of scareful, that midnight ride, but we'd got our backs to the gulch. For that, I'd have followed a curiouser sort of guide. 'Twas kind of scareful to watch the herd as the plungin' leaders squirmed and shrank, as I heerd the flick of the unseen lash hiss on the side of a steamin' flank. Guess the feller was smart at the work. We worked them leaders round until they overtook the tail of the herd, and the hull of the crowd begun to mill. Round spun the herd in a great black wheel, slower and slower, ye've seen beneath a biggish torrent a whirlpool spin, its waters black as the face of death. 'Peared sort of like that, the millin' herd we kept by the leaders, him and me, neck by neck, and he sung a tune about a young gal named Betsy Lee. Jine in the chorus? Wal, yes, I did. He sung like a regular mockin' bird, and us cowboys allus sing out ef you calm the scare, if we can, of a runnin' herd. Slower and slower wheeled round the mill, the maddest old steer of a leader slowed. Slower and slower sounded the hoofs of the hoss that him in front of me rode. Fainter and fainter growed that thar song of Betsy Lee and her har of gold. Fainter and fainter grew the sound of the unseen hoofs on the tore-up mold. The leadin' steer, that cuss of a Joe, stopped and shook off the foam and the sweat. With a stamp and a beller, the run was done. Was glad of it, too, you're free to bet. The herd slowed up, and stood in a mass of blackness lit by the lightnin's eye, and the mustang cowered as something swept clus to his wet flank in passin' by. "Good night to you, pard." "Good night," says I, strainin' my sight on the empty air, the har riz rustlin' up on my head, now that I hed time to scare. The mustang flinched till his saddle girth scraped on the dust of the tremblin' ground. There come a laugh, the crack of a whip, a whine like the cry of a well-pleased hound, the noise of a hoss that reared and sprang at the touch of a spur. Then all was still, but the sound of the thunder dyin' down on the stony breast of the highest hill. The herd went back to its rest and feed, as quiet a crowd as ever wore hide, and them boys in camp never heerd a lisp of the thunder and crash of that run and ride. And I'll never forget while a wildcat claws, or a cow loves a nibble of sweet blue grass, the cur'us pardner that rode with me in the night stampede in Old Spookses Pass. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Our Flag by Margaret E. Sangster, recorded for LibriVox.org by J.C. Woods. Fling it from mast and steeple, symbol o'er land and sea, of the life of a happy people, gallant and strong and free. Proudly we view its colors, flag of the brave and true, with the clustered stars and the steadfast bars, the red, the white, and the blue. Flag of the fearless hearted, flag of the broken chain, flag in a day dawn started, never to pale or wane. Dearly we prize its colors, with the heaven light breaking through, the clustered stars and the steadfast bars, the red, the white, and the blue. Flag of the sturdy fathers, flag of the loyal sons, beneath its folds it gathers earth's best and noblest ones. Boldly we wave its colors, our veins are thrilled anew by the steadfast bars, the clustered stars, the red, the white, and the blue. End of poem. This is a recording in the public domain.
Schoolboys in Winter by John Clare. Recorded by Highland Oaks. The schoolboys still their morning ramble take to neighboring village school with playing speed, loitering with pastime's leisure till they quake, oft looking up the wild geese droves to heed, watching the letters which their journeys make, or plucking haws on which their fieldfares feed, and hips and slows, and on each shallow lake making glib slides, where they like shadows go till some fresh pastimes in their minds awake. Then off they start anew, and hasty blow their numbed and clumsing fingers till they glow. Then races with their shadows wildly run, that stride huge giants o'er the shining snow, in the pale splendor of the winter sun. End of poem. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain.
Spring and Fall to a Young Child by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Read for LibriVox.org by Ostry Fingerhut. Spring and Fall to a Young Child. Margaret, are you grieving over Golden Grove unleaving? Leaves like the things of man you with your fresh thoughts care for, can you? Ah, as the heart grows older, it will come to such sights colder, by and by, nor spare a sigh, though worlds of one would leave me a lie, and yet you will weep, and know why. Now no matter, child, the name, sorrow's springs are the same, nor mouth had, no, nor mind, expressed what heart heard of, ghost guessed. It is the blight man was born for. It is Margaret you mourn for. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Storm by Ozora Stearns Davis. Read for LibriVox.org by TechSavvy. When morning broke, the air was thick with snow. The burdened trees, with branches bending low, were softly mourning o'er the summer fled, o'er leaves and flowers forever cold and dead. The dancing flakes were shouting forth, hey ho! The sombre forests answered back, oh, woe! When morning broke. Ere evening's close, a welcome glory crept across the silent sky. The meadows slept in mantles white, the peak was burnished gold, and far away the tattered storm clouds rolled. A freezing wind across the valley swept, the lightened, swaying trees no longer wept. Ere evening's close. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Whale by Hilaire Belloc. Read for LibriVox.org by TechSavvy. The whale that wanders round the pole is not a table fish. You cannot bake or boil him whole, nor serve him in a dish. But you may cut his blubber up and melt it down for oil, and so replace the colza bean, a product of the soil. These facts should all be noted down and ruminated on by every boy in Oxford town who wants to be a Don. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
What power art thou who from below? By John Dryden. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. What power art thou who from below hast made me rise unwillingly and slow from beds of everlasting snow? Seest thou not how stiff and wondrous old, far unfit to bear the bitter cold, I can scarcely move or draw my breath? Let me freeze again to death. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.